the world seems a little bit crazy right now. Anybody feel that way? Yeah. And that can sometimes leave us wondering, what's ours to do? And so I don't think it's any mistake that all month this month, our global theme for February is about walking and embracing the edge and pushing beyond our comfort limits. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to lean in to the title of the talk today, which is Walking the Edge of Life. And to me that means not only thinking about our truth, but embodying it and living it out loud, even when it feels uncomfortable. When I think about pushing past limits and being somewhere that's uncomfortable, I think about the process of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It has to go into that cocoon and then flap its wings until it's finally free of the chrysalis and can fly out and be that butterfly. And so today, we're going to take a little bit of a journey together with our friends, the caterpillar and the butterfly, as we look at what it takes to walk the edge of life on a personal level. Does that sound good?
Yes.
You guys with me? I love the enthusiasm in the room. Yeah. All right. Well, this started last week when Rev Suzanne told us that we need to take our spiritual vitamins. Yeah. And those are those daily spiritual practices that we have in place, that we do consistently so that we have a foundation, so that we have a space that we can build from. Well, guess what? Just like spiritual vitamins, there are also some spiritual supplements. One of them that I'm going to invite you into today is having the willingness to sit in the silence and just be. I read a quote the other day that my brain actually had a little trouble with. It said, don't just do something, sit there. And I was like, wait, they can't, did I read that wrong? That can't be it. And it's, I think, because we live in a world that is so addicted to do it. There's always something going on. If you meet somebody on the street and you say, hey, how have you been? Oh, I'm good, I've been busy. It's as if we've tied our worth to our productivity, when that's not actually the truth. But the truth is that we're worthy because we're divine in nature. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says, you are an individualized center of God consciousness, a unique expression of the one life. Because of this, you are inherently worthy. See, our worth is intrinsic. It doesn't have to be earned, and we don't have to do anything to receive it. Just like the caterpillar, our divinity is woven into our DNA. In fact, it is the DNA itself. We just have to allow ourselves to open up and express it outwardly. And to do that, we need to first turn within. Don't just do something. Sit there. Allow that divine cocoon to surround and support you. Be still and know. And then listen. Deepak Chopra says that in the silence of every soul lies the answer to every question. Yet as a society, we seem to be almost allergic to that pause, to the quiet and the stillness. If you watched the Grammys a few weeks ago, you'll notice that as they call people up to the stage to get their award, they play music. It's like something is going to happen in that awkward pause. Yeah? But that awkward pause is actually where the magic is. Now, full disclosure, I am not a drummer. But when I was younger, I took some drum lessons. And what the teacher told me has stuck with me throughout the years. And I think it just ties perfectly into what we're talking about here right now. I was really frustrated that I couldn't get this complicated rhythm down. And he said, Karen, the space between the beats, the upbeat, the pause is just as important as the downbeat. That to make the rhythm, you need both. We need both in our life. We need to take that time to lean into the pause crazy. But I think that Ram Dass has summed that up perfectly. In the book, The Journey of Awakening, he says this. In 1967, I spent many months in my guru's temple in India, and I recall receiving a letter from a dear friend describing the Chicago Convention and the revolutionary protests of many people whom I knew. For a moment, I felt as if I were escaping from the world by sitting in this temple in India, leading a simple, quiet life. I thought I was copping out. It was as though I were at the rest camp, far from the action, and my friends were out on the front lines, truly helping mankind find a better world. At the time, I was studying the Bhagavad Gita, which is the story of Krishna's injunction to Arjuna to fight in a battle. As I reflected more deeply, the Bhagavad Gita helped me realize it is often easier to fight an external enemy than to confront one's own inner demons. And that my own inner work did as much for my fellow mankind as it did for myself. Indeed, this was one of the front lines of the battle, deepening my own inner being to feed others. Perhaps, I thought, he says, I was on the front lines all along. Gathering here this morning, doing that deep inner work, we're a part of that process. And I would argue that until we turn within and get still and find our true face, that we're not going to be able to do as much good out in the world. That this is actually the first step to being that supportive presence. And this work is not for the faint of heart. It may require you to stretch and change and to transform, just like that caterpillar becoming the butterfly. You might even find that the way things have always been no longer work, but nothing seems to be in the new space. I affectionately call this spot in spiritual growth the gap. It feels super vulnerable and exposed to be in this space where things have changed, but there isn't a new normal yet. And this too this process makes us lean in and really face that truth of who we are. And know that we know that we know that God has got us, no matter what. And in this process, just like the caterpillar, we must be willing to undergo that transformation. And it's there that you'll meet your higher wisdom self, your God self. And when you do, I encourage you to ask what's yours to do. Where can I be of service? And something within you, in that higher wisdom self, you will hear a call. Feel that divine urge. And when you do, I invite you to have the courage to say yes. How many of you have ever felt an idea come up and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a nice thing to do somewhere over here. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. When I graduated from ministerial school, I knew I wanted to start a teaching center. And I kept putting it off, I'm like, yeah, someday. No, I'm going to be a staff minister first. I'm going to do this thing over here that feels a little bit safer. No. That's what my soul was calling me to. That was mine to do. Our book of the month is Howard Thurman's The Inward Journey. And in it, Howard Thurman describes courage in a very specific way. He says that courage is the quiet power that rises from deep within, born of stillness and rooted in presence. You can see why we started with going into the stillness. He teaches that when we enter the sanctuary of stillness, we touch the source that steadies us so we can act with clarity, even when the outer world feels chaotic. It's when we take the time for daily spiritual practice and spend time in that beautiful cocoon of stillness that we are allowing ourselves to cultivate an inner life that is strong enough to withstand the outer world. About, hear people say we can be in the world but not of it. I would say we can walk on that edge of life. And it's here that you're going to find that your wings become strong enough to break free and come out into the world, just like the caterpillar. That it's from the stillness that we begin to align that inward journey with our outward life. And what this means is that when we are aligned from that space, that we are never acting contrary to our inner truth. That we beat our wings against anything that feels unlike love. Can we take a stand for justice and equality and peace until we are free to fly like our friend the butterfly? This is our call right now. It's our call to sacred spiritual activism. And sacred activism is described from our home office as where prayer becomes motion and principle becomes practice. It's who we are and how we can be in this beautiful world. We're here for a reason at this very moment and this time. And can we speak up when we hear something that doesn't resonate with our values? Can we have the courage to say something, even when that comes from someone we love, or respect, or care about? Can we stay in that aligned space, rooted in the truth to say, no, that doesn't resonate with me, and here's how I feel. It's our opportunity to see activism in a new light. And we can see activism not as being against something, but for things. I like to say, to find a way to be for something and against nothing. Take that in for a moment. And that means instead of being against violence, we take a stand for peace. Instead of being against separation, that we take a stand for inclusion and unity. Can you feel the difference in that? That one feels like a closed fist and the other feels like it invites in more good and more God. That this too allows us to remain aligned and stand in that space. And so I invite us each day to take a pause. Again, asking, where am I invited to show up? And maybe it's not marching in a demonstration. Maybe it's showing up with just a gesture of generosity, or speaking a kind word when it would be easier not to. That everything can be both an expression of love or a call for love. And can we be that space of love in all things? And trust that our truth was meant to be lived out loud. That we are principle in action. And I think we have a really great example of this going on right now. Who's seen the monks with the peace pilgrimage? Everybody? Yeah. I just love this. It's a group of nearly 24 monks who literally walked from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. So we're talking about a little over, I think it's 2,300 miles that they walked during the winter. I mean, they're going through some big storms and sub-zero temperatures, and they're walking on highways and city streets. And they're reported to have said, we walk not to protest, but to awaken the peace that already lives within each one of us. And you know how they've been received? People have flocked to them, gathering on the roadsides, offering flowers and food and water, joining them in silent prayer. That call within each one of us is there, that when we see that shining example, that it resonates. It's It's the mirror to the truth that is the essence that lives inside each one of us. And the monks said that their goals are to promote national healing, unity, and compassion, and invite moments of reflection and stillness, and to encourage mindfulness as a daily practice. And I thought, wow, I can't think of a better example of walking the edge of life. What's calling to you? And I know maybe that's not walking the 2,300 miles. That's okay. But what is it that's here? When you turn within in the silence, what is it that you hear? What's yours to do? Collectively, are we willing to live what we say we believe, even when it's risky, inconvenient, or uncomfortable? Are you willing to take a stand for truth? To do that thing that might not be considered in the in crowd. And we've got a shining example of doing things not in the in crowd from the great master teacher Jesus. He was not always aligned with popular opinion, but he did align himself with what was true for him. And that inner place that he was aligned with the divinity that was the truth of love and compassion and unity. And he stood for that and knew that no matter what happened, that sweet spirit had him. We take these examples into our own life and remember that alignment is our superpower. It's this that allows us to be still and know, to find that peace that passeth all understanding that Jerry talked about this morning, and stay rooted in the midst of the storm. So this week, I challenge you to take time to sit in the silence and stay there until your soul moves you. Knowing that this too is doing good work in the world. If this is the only step you take, it is enough. And when you feel called, when you feel that divine yes, whether that's yes to show up at demonstrations, march thousands of miles, or teach a class, or just help a neighbor in need, I challenge you to find a way to be for something and against nothing, and to know that every act matters. There is no big, there is no small in sacred activism. There are just acts of courage, and those acts of courage ripple out, helping to create the world that works for all. And we each be that divine principle in practice, walking the edge of life together. So,